combined. Joining me now, Adam Kovacevich, Chamber of Progress founder and CEO, who represents some of the folks within this fintech industry here. Adam, I know that we've been talking about this thing for weeks now. There's been a lot of anticipation, both amongst members of the industry as well as in the price. But what does this thing do? Why is it such a big deal?
Well, let's start with the Genius Act, which the president's going to sign today. People may forget this now, but we had a big crypto stablecoin meltdown in 2022 with Terra Luna, an algorithmic stablecoin that was not backed to $1. That was the original impetus for the legislation that's going to be signed today, which requires that stablecoins be linked to $1, which is great for consumers and the stability of crypto. It kind of weeds out some of the less stable stablecoins, if you will. And so I think that's the significance of that law, of that bill that's going to become law today. Clarity Act is really much more about providing a clear division of labor between government agencies, between the SEC and the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, on who will regulate which parts of crypto. And that really starts in motion rulemaking processes for both of those agencies, which I think is really kind of a page-turning moment from the Biden administration approach, which was really to try to put their fingers in their ears and kind of pretend that crypto didn't exist and would go away, which I think was just a flop of a strategy.
Adam, I'm always curious, especially when we have a new technology that's starting to take hold, whether it's more of a push or a pull. In other words, there is a big industry that has now grown up around crypto and around stablecoins specifically that is really wants to forward these products. What's the demand? What's the use case? What are we doing with this stuff?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, on the one hand, 55 million Americans use crypto in some way, so that's not an insignificant number. But there's also a lot of people for whom crypto is completely foreign. They might even be really skeptical about it. And frankly, I think it is okay and healthy to be somewhat skeptical. Not every crypto application is going to pan out. And that's okay. I think with any new technology, it's okay to say, look, some of these things are going to pan out and be great. Some of them are going to be flops. And what we should try to do with regulation is try to minimize the flops and make sure that those don't have a negative impact on consumers. But I do think, I sort of think with decentralized technology, we've talked a lot about the need for kind of more competition. Decentralized technology, blockchain technology provides that. But I think, frankly, we're still in a pretty early stage for kind of seeing how that will be applied in new ways. So, this is really just the beginning, in my view.
Well, to that point also, we spoke yesterday with Representative Mike Haradopoulos, Florida congressman, who talked about the significance of this vote as well. He says he sees crypto crucial to making the U.S. the epicenter of finance. I want to play what he had to say.
This is the future of finance. It's a more efficient way to move money, and it should reduce overhead costs for everyday businesses. That's what really makes the difference. And what was happening is that those investment dollars were going everywhere else in the world because this is where people want to go with their money.
So again, to sort of drill down on this, Adam, I hear a lot of people using that phrase, future of finance. He talks about the costs being lower. So sort of how is that going to play out in real time, recognizing, as you said, that it is early?
Well, here's the thing. So one of the things I think is important to understand about the political debate around this is that there are absolutely some crypto, strong optimists like the representative there, right? This is going to change finance forever. I'm actually more interested in the policymakers who may even be skeptical about crypto. And part of our argument to them is, look, you can be skeptical, but you should still want this industry to stay in the United States and be regulated here, right? Let's actually put this industry under the regulatory purview of our agencies, because if we don't do that, these are companies that will shift offshore, right? And we want crypto as an industry, frankly, to be subject to U.S. regulation and, frankly, following kind of American values. And so that's kind of my argument to crypto skeptics, right? That even if you don't, you're not crazy about this industry, it's in America's national interest for us to be setting clear rules for this industry, protecting American consumers, and making sure that crypto as an industry doesn't just go offshore, where frankly it's further out of the reach of our our law enforcement agencies.
Adam, I want to ask you about something else that you've actually written about. When we talk about the sort of sketchy reputation that crypto has had historically, and as you point out in a recent piece, this goes all the way to the top, right, with the Trump family that has been hawking a lot of what I think we can agree are at times dubious products, right? So how do you see that track at the same time that you see this legitimization push when the call is coming from inside the house, so to speak? It looks like that there is abuse in plain sight.
Unfortunately, I think the Trump family's activity in the crypto space has just complicated this whole debate unnecessarily. Because I think if you ask people in the industry, they're going to say, look, we really appreciate that Trump kind of knocked off a lot of the silliness of the Biden era SEC and kind of Gary Gensler's approach. We're sort of like pretending crypto doesn't exist. He's taken some good deregulatory steps. He's taken some steps to reduce, eliminate the lawsuits that were really silly. But at the same time, I think if you gave truth serum to most of the people in the crypto industry, they would say they would really prefer that Trump and his family weren't doing any of this stuff. Because the fact is, everybody in the industry really wants a legitimized, regulated industry that's on firm footing. And that's what's interesting about this policy debate. This is not an instance of industry coming to Congress and seeking deregulation. They've actually been seeking regulation, more rules. And, I think the reality is the stuff that Trump's been doing has been sort of hanging over that. There are good separate bills in Congress that I fully support that would actually prevent presidents, members of Congress from being involved in things like meme coins. I think we should pass those things. Probably won't pass them unless Democrats take over one of the parts of Congress. But I think my view is that policymakers should be both pro-crypto and anti-corruption.
And Adam, finally, I know you're not really a price guy, but I'm going to ask you a price question anyway. I'm curious. We obviously have seen all of this be very bullish for crypto prices, not just Bitcoin, but really the whole universe. From the people you're talking to in the industry, do they see any sort of other speed bumps ahead?
You're right. I'm not a price guy, and to be honest, to see your reporting about what the impact of these legislative developments are having on crypto stocks is interesting. Frankly, I think the bigger point for me is what it does for consumers, and I think all of these things, all of these laws are positive for consumers, not from the perspective of necessarily crypto adoption, but frankly more consumer protection and just more rules in place, right? Because I think what the long-term effect of all these regulations being passed is that you will probably see some less, some of the sketchier practices being forbidden, and frankly, kind of the growing up of crypto as an industry, which almost certainly will increase consumer confidence. That doesn't mean everybody's going to go out and become crypto holders tomorrow, but I think people in the crypto industry actually see a future where they want more legitimacy, more consumer confidence, and regulation is actually a path to getting there.
Adam, adeptly handled the price question. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.